Right, so we want to tap into the amazing firepower in your brains to really give the audience a sense of where digital transformation is going, and also circle back to how you guys are using these incredible digital technologies within your organizations, that real value, and hear it firsthand from the three of you. So travel is a really emotive subject. When we set out on a journey, there's so much more to it than something that's transactional. So with digital tools, what are some of the specific benefits that you're seeing from these apps or platforms or services that keep it very human-centered? And John, maybe I'll come to you.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what we try to do is capture sentiment. I mean, that's the first thing that I think of, is when people are actually traveling, they're having a good experience, a bad experience, we're capturing that data. So we talked just a little bit ago about data, and then being able to react to that in real time. So as opposed to a person having a bad experience booking, or the hotel that they're at is not good, or their flight gets delayed, and then you fester on that the entire trip, and next thing you know, your entire trip is shit because you don't really like it. Like, we get to see that stuff much earlier on, which is one of the first things I would think through.
Yeah, Adrian, what about you?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it before, like, technology needs to work for humans. We need to make people more productive, smarter. I love my email client now recommend me what to type next. And as a non-native speaker, like Grammarly, to tell me that sounds too aggressive or maybe not active enough. So we have our own experience with our own digital assistant, Sam. We have been trying to make people feel smarter. If I can tell you your flight is delayed before the airport announced, that makes you feel better. And I think we need to find that connection on all the aspects. Every time you interact with us, on even harder cases like support, we need to bring that reward of, like, I feel better, I'm more performant, or I'm smarter, and we need to make technology work on that sense.
Yeah, I love that. If it brings out those elements, and actually your association with the company that's rolling it out and the technology as well goes up, which is fantastic. Salman, I wonder if you have a sort of opening statement on that.
Yeah, no, I think at Sabre it's very much about personalization, and that's to what John and Adrian have said, is for the entire journey. And it's really how you bring, all your different selves. I think it's, I think all of us can relate to, we've got a work self, we've got a leisure self, we've got a weekend self, we've got a family self, we've got a reunion with a high school self, and, hundreds and hundreds of selves. And how do you sort of bring that at every point of the decision, which really starts with your search, all the way to taking the trip.
Yeah, we're multifaceted people.
Absolutely.
We don't just have one hat or behave in one way. What I'm like on a Monday is very different from a Saturday.
maybe your AR will change that.
Well, exactly.
For now, that's
exactly.
That's true.
So when it comes to synthetic intelligence, or AI and automation, could you guys see it as being truly helpful to onboard new customers, to train? Are you already using it within your organizations? I want to drill into perhaps the how of it. And Adrian, I'll come to you first here.
Sure. I think I'm a developer first, and I'm very, very realistic. Like most of the company, we have been working on automation. A lot of if this, then that, like you mentioned before. And that has worked well, and that can pass as a simple AI. But I've seen a revolution of AI in the last years, even on areas that I didn't expect it. So I really feel that it's going to change a lot how we work on different roles. Even developers nowadays, we're getting like what I was mentioning before, autocomplete on an email. You can get it as a developer. So there's GitHub Copilot. While you're coding, that gets you a recommendation what to code next. So that's a really complex task, and they're already system to do it. So imagine what we can do with those sort of AIs in other, again, support, data intelligence, reporting. Probably before you needed a whole division of the company to work on AI, just the technology needed, the supercomputers. Now, as a single developer, I could just go online, start using one of these systems, and I get my own, it's going to be dumb AI, but it's up to me now to train it. We have a lot of data, and you start creating this model, this trained model, and you start producing amazing results with very little effort. So I'm really excited what that's going to come, because I really think, Ben said before, it has been a lot of buzzwords all this time, AI, but I feel that we're going to see a lot of things changing in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And wow, predictive coding, I wasn't aware of that.
That's pretty amazing.
Fantastic.
It's not going to replace developers, but it's going to automate a lot of the, like baseline
Yes.
code that you need
Yeah.
you can focus on like really hard coding, and the basic standard stuff, you get like tap, tap, tap,
Yeah.
done.
And that's the point, to free up some of those hours you would spend on tedious stuff. Salman, what about you? Where are you seeing the value for automation most prominently?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that it's very much, it's very much core. In fact, we have a sort of a core set of products, which ironically we call Automation Hub, and that has to deal, especially with the post-booking processes and how you can automate it. And it's all about so your agents can actually add, better experiences and not spending time. I think it was in your presentation that you referred to sort of the productivity improvements, right, where you get up to like 70% productivity at an agent level. So it's absolutely core.
People just want to get that part of their life back so you can focus on everything else. John, I can see you nodding vociferously.
Yes. I mean, for me, what I would point to is it's really that unexpected, delightful experience. That's really what you're trying to get at, whether it's autocomplete on a very complex, development environment, or just getting the notification that something's delayed, or that message that you didn't expect to get. And sometimes that comes from a person, which is great. Sometimes it's a rules-based system or an engine powering that for a person. Sometimes it comes directly from the system. But I think people in general, they want to feel, and they want to have that unexpected, delighted experience. And I think when AI is working perfectly, that's what you deliver. You deliver something that you know you needed, or maybe you didn't know you needed until you got it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's feeding me something that I wasn't even sure that I needed to hand. And actually, that's a really good place to be, isn't it? Yeah. So we're all at different stages of digital transformation cycles within our organizations, right? I wonder, what are some of the roadblocks, the messy stuff behind the scenes that people don't often talk about, right? What are some of those roadblocks you've either seen your own company go through or with your clients? And perhaps crucially, how that was overcome. And Salman, I'll come to you first on this.
Yeah, sure.
Hot seat there.
Yeah, sure. So I'll share two perspectives that I get from the clients where we implement. So I think the first thing is to have a very clear case for change and the why. And that really needs to be championed at the top, because there will definitely, it's a journey, and there'll definitely be moments where you will question your purpose here. Secondly, I think it is you go through a selling process, and it's very important to be clear on who are you engaging with. So who are the people, who are the team who's actually going to help you deliver this. So escalation points and engagement points are absolutely critical, almost even more critical than actually the what. And the third one, which is more a personal reflection, Shivvy, is the sort of every culture, every organization has its own cultural ethos. And I think it's too academic to sort of say, look, we're going to change the culture, et cetera, and it takes time. And in digital transformations, you don't have time. So my personal reflection is that every organization has an ethos, that kind of one word which helps drive people, which helps motivate people, which helps people get out of bed. I know at Sabre, that one word, and for those of you who are working with Sabre, please feel free to use that word and get the best out of our teams, is solve. Sabre teams and people love to solve stuff. So if you preface a conversation, if you conclude a conversation with the word solve, please help me solve this. Please, let's help solve this. You'll get the best out of the teams, and you'll get them on your side.
I think we need that on a T-shirt, actually. Yeah. It's like solve, yeah.
With a big exclamation mark.
With a big exclamation mark, with a lot of energy behind it. John, what about you?
I think it's a very interesting question in the travel industry. Yeah. I mean, we heard earlier today about the last couple of years specifically, how much more technology has come into play within travel. It's a very legacy kind of classic type of industry compared to others that have been embracing technology a lot sooner. So I think the problem or the challenge of digital transformation is really difficult because you've got a lot of individuals in an organization who aren't used to a lot of the new tools that are out there and how to adapt and use them. So I think the lesson that I try to put forth in the programs that we're working on is really having the business users own the outcomes, making sure that it's not something you're delivering to them. It's something that you're delivering in collaboration with them. Because I think you had mentioned at some point in your earlier slides, it does often get saddled on the technology team to go through and do something. But if you're not invested in the change, you don't end up actually making much of one.
Yeah. And I love that thing about owning your outcomes, actually. If you feel like you have some ownership of it, you're much more invested in it.
Yeah.
And it's not just something you see as the IT experts doing, but actually you get much more buy-in from people early on. Adrian, I wonder what you have to add to that, particularly as you're so in the know with everything to do with protecting people's integrity and data.
Yeah, exactly. So again, as a developer, I see like there are two conflicting paths. We're capturing more and more data, like Steven said before, like millions data points, but also we see customers more aware of their own data. Yeah. So data privacy is becoming a really big request. They want to own the data, they want to host it in their local data center. So how we make this both worlds coexist? And I think there's a way, like you need to properly specify how you're capturing the data, what data you're using, how you make this data anonymous. Like you shouldn't be able to, you don't need to identify a person to train an AI model. So there's going to be, a challenge on making the companies, they want the outcome, they want all the benefits that they come with AI. So they will need to be willing also to accept that, anonymous data will be used. And that's the area I see a challenge because they are both really, AI is up here, but data security is also here.
Yeah, exactly. And anonymized aggregated data is one way to convince people that, hey, I'm capturing this information because it's going to benefit you, but I don't know that it's tied into you or specifically you. And the system doesn't need to know that, particularly when it comes to things like health or money. We're even more conscious of that, aren't we? So, John, I want to come to you specifically on this one. I know you're an augmented reality advocate and a master. How do you see tools such as AR helping business travelers in particular who have different needs to perhaps an average holidaymaker?
I love how I get an Oculus headset and all of a sudden I'm the expert. To the business travel question, which I think the session that we did that's pre-recorded, largely focused on, what I would tell people is if you think of human interaction as a spectrum, you kind of understand where some of the stuff fits in. So you go back a couple hundred years ago, if you wanted to talk to somebody you didn't physically live with, you had to write a letter, right, with a quill or parchment, whatever the heck it was, and you put it in the mail and you'd hope it'd get there, and it would take weeks, months sometimes for a message to get across. And then over time, obviously, we have innovation, telegrams and telephones. There's probably a lot of, like me, Gen Zers in the room that grew up without a cell phone, right? Who didn't have a cell phone when they grew up? I mean, please don't let me be the only person raising my hand with this. That adopted these new technologies as they happen. Now communications is very ambiguous in terms of how you communicate. But if you think about it, there's really a whole spectrum there. So the far end of the spectrum is a very impersonal, asynchronized communication medium, an email, something that's just very, I do it when I can. It's not tailored to emotion. It's just really, very, very vanilla. And the far end, you have human interaction, like sitting here on stage talking, the meeting that we're in, interacting with people. And there's a wide number of technologies and methods that sit in the middle of that. From an email, you go to a text message, maybe you go to like a Slack environment where you're doing live chat, and you eventually get to a video conference, and eventually into a face-to-face conversation. The current technology with AR and virtual reality has a place in that spectrum, right? And I think what will eventually happen is the technology will improve. The stuff that's out there now is very much maybe Gen 1 or Gen 2. If I gave somebody an iPhone 3 or 4 right now, you'd be like, what the heck is this piece of junk? Compared to what we are used to seeing today. But if you consider that what we're seeing in the market in today's world is the iPhone 3 or 4 version of where things will eventually be, and eventually it's the glasses or whatnot, you can start to see a lot of possibilities. And I think in the last couple of years, because of the travel restrictions that the pandemic has put on people, we've all moved from a very asynchronous model to highly video conferencing. And we're all kind of got, video conferencing fatigue. There's some people here that I haven't seen in years or seen for the first time. And you're like, my God, you got wider, you got smaller over the years or whatever.
Don't say that out loud.
I got wider. So, but you see people and you can have that conversation with them, but you don't see that when you're on a Zoom or a Teams meeting. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a point where that technology allows the spectrum to expand a bit more, and there'll be people that will consciously look at what kind of interaction they have to have, and choose a different tool for it. Now, I'm not saying we would ever do something of this magnitude for 5 or 6 hours with a 3-pound headset on, not in today's world. But if you could imagine in a couple years, things shrink down to the size of a glass or glasses, and they have a bit more content, you can actually see how some of the technology can be used. You know? So a lot of the work that we're doing now is just very early exploratory. There are some great use cases around meetings in some of the hybrid events that are out there. They are very compelling experiences when you actually use them. In the video that is in the session, you know, I talk through how it's 3D audio. If I look this way, I can hear you over here in the back of the. It's really very immersive and very surprising. I've brought the headset in and had some people that, you know, are on the team use it, and they're all quite surprised with how immersive the technology is. So if you take that and just move it forward several years, you can start to see where some of your business travel use cases look to be a little bit different, and they introduce new opportunities and new challenges as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking to, you know, the video calls thing, there was a really interesting consumer survey in Britain that showed this ridiculous jump, and I mean 45 to 60% in the number of consultations received by skin clinics and Botox clinics after 6 months of video calls, because you just got used to staring at yourself and you thought, I don't like those frown lines, or bloody hell, I've aged a lot. Because most people don't admit that, but the person they look at the most is themselves. I wish I could disable that because it's distracting. Yeah. I don't want to see my 41-year-old face when I'm video calling, so I want to see that. You're drawn to it. You have 10 people on the screen, you're staring at yourself. How do I look? What's my hair? Not my hair, but you know. Like, and it's true, and that's induced stress in some people. So you can start to see where like an avatar-based environment, a bit more like where it fits in. Is it today? Probably not. You know, but we're talking on a spectrum of different things. Exactly. If it was as light as a pair of lightweight Ray-Bans, you know, regular pair of glasses rather than a clunky headset, you can see people go, okay, if that means I can feel like I'm in the room with the three of you, even though I'm sat back in London and you're in your respective places, there is value from that. And actually prototyping as well in real time. So companies that do physical ideation and prototyping have a lot of value for something like this as well, because you can actually build stuff together quite literally. So as we come to, wow, we're in red, so we have 4.5 minutes left, okay, then we self-destruct. Are there any particular innovation initiatives or particular areas that you're focusing on within your companies that you just want to shout out about, just champion, celebrate some of the really good stuff? So Adrian, I'm going to come to you first.
So yeah, you got me there on the spot a bit. Like we're working on like completely new platforms. So we're taking like all our learnings that we had like on Salman, our digital assistant. We're definitely trying to. We have, as I said before, a lot of the good, smart things are on the back end. We need to bring all that into the front end. We need to bring this to the facing the user. Exactly. Historically, travel industry has not been the most user-friendly experience. So we are now putting a focus on that. Like the user, the traveler needs to be, you know, first. And don't get me wrong, like all the backend systems, they need to work properly to be able to provide that. So we have been like for a few years fixing like, you know, the foundation of the house, and now we're ready to start building a nice looking house. So we're like fully investing on this. Like the new platform is like on pilot, actually out of pilot with new customers. Amazing. So all the companies like pushing that direction. So this is how we are. That's a great example of digital fluidity. You know, the phrase sounds vague, but it is being able to weave in and out of it, being able to iterate, prototype, show people stuff that they'll actually use. Salman, what about you? Anything particular that Sabre are doing? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. And just building on what Adrian said, I think you know, I think what's really important in travel is the scale, right? Because this is an industry where one search, one customer could be 500 different searches involved. So I think certainly that's a prerequisite. And then secondly, we're really trying to focus on how we build, how we go to the nth degree on personalization, and how do we bring the supply side, which is the airline side, and the demand side, which is the agencies and ultimately the end user, really closer together, so that the offer that's generated is right the first time. That's so we add to that T-shirt. It says "solve!" exclamation, and then it has a triangle with the 3 factors that need to, you know, come into one seamless thing. John, I'm going to pick your brain.
Yeah, no, I mean, Adrian spoke to all of the stuff that we're doing within the FCM business specifically. A lot of, I was very happy to see the earlier survey that we did, that GBTA had around, the importance of technology and some of the trends around owning the end-to-end experience getting quite high, because we're obviously focused very heavily on that. I think one of the areas that I spend a bit more time with is the specific nuance of managed business travel is really interesting when you look at user experience and offers and rules and personalization, because the definition of business travel in a managed program is really to limit choice. I mean, say it however you want. Like, we are telling people, or our customers are saying, this direct business flight is the most sustainable and best for your well-being, and it's awesome, but you can't take it because it costs 5 times as much as the cheaper one that's out there. So I think a lot of what I try to focus on is how we weave those two things together. How do you provide a really excellent user experience where the person's delighted with what they're doing, they're really engaged with the platform, they're feeling like they get their needs met, but from a corporate perspective, because our customers are footing the bill, it's not a leisure trip where you can spend what you want, the company's paying for it. How do we put controls around that to make sure that we're doing the things that need to happen and we're being mindful of expenses and things like that? So those two intersections are really interesting when you dive into it, and how do you do both of those things quite well? So a lot of those pieces is where I focus on.
Brilliant. This felt like a bit of a mind lab. I get to tease out all these great things from you guys. So I'm going to actually now turn to open the floor to the audience. I wonder if there's something in particular that's been keeping you guys up at night to do with work, or particular pain points you're coming up against that perhaps you want to maybe quiz these guys on and get a really great idea for how to address that, or anything else, a burning question that anyone might have. Come on, I need someone to kick this off. You guys are in the business of people. I want to hear someone ask an interesting question. Just put yourself out there. You need me to kick it off? Oh, I see a couple of faces there going, yeah, I think I have something I want to ask. Anyone there? No? Okay.
Oh, there's a question.
Oh, okay, perfect. There you go.
I think one of the struggles we all have post-COVID and in a changing world, and certainly in a global business, is how do we... Is that better? Yeah. How do we manage teams and relationships and run a business in a global organization when I can't stay awake for more than 9 hours? So do you think that any of this that we've been talking about and this human-led innovation and digitalization can play a part in connecting us better as people and making us more efficient as a business?
Great question. Salman?
Ooh, how do you take
Salman's deep in thought, like the thinkers in your organization, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's the challenge is in this hybrid world that we live in now. It's going to be, building that human connection and being connected and being able to build a culture within the teams is going to be 10 times more important. And unfortunately, I don't think there's an easy answer. And I think, but it has to start with exactly how it started. What was true 3 years ago, where, one has to make that personal effort and try to be as authentic in reaching out, right? So just in terms of teams, personally, I always start a conversation with, tell me about your family. And that can be done, as simply as, if you're on the phone or you're on a video call or you're in person. And I think some of those principles we've got to, we've just got to maintain. And ultimately, that's important.
Yeah, because you can't shake those personas, right?
Absolutely.
You're your own person and you're the business professional, but that's the same person.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, again, if you go back to that spectrum analysis in terms of how you use the different tools available to help create those bonds. Obviously, right now, with in the past few months, a lot of restrictions being lifted, both governmental and company restrictions in allowing to travel, we're seeing an explosion of pent-up demand of people that are desperate to see customers, meet their team members face-to-face, and that'll probably start to subside a little while afterwards. And you still have these other tools available. So I think it's around figuring out the right balance of what tool works, and I think we kind of innately do it. I mean, even within this room, probably while I'm up here talking, somebody's texting somebody else around something. Maybe my hair, or I don't know what, something, but you kind of know that if I want an instant response, I'll text somebody. If I need an answer that I can get tomorrow, I'll email it to you. Like, we've kind of become wired to know what channels and what mediums work well to communicate, and I think this will just add more complexity to that to help manage those relationships, particularly with really geographically dispersed, teams that have kind of cropped up now that people have spread out a bit as a result of COVID.
Yeah, there is such a thing as WhatsApp anxiety, more so with 13 to 17-year-olds. I know, I'm such a geek, I research everything. Up until 2 in the morning most nights. And it is that it's the tick mark fatigue, right? Because you see it's been delivered or it's on red, which means 2 blue tick marks. And you just feel a bit uneasy, we all do. If it's something that you really want to hear back on, you think,
well, 3 dots, you're sitting there, 3 dots, okay, come on. Yeah.
And you go, I'll distract myself, but no, what are they going to say? Yeah. And if it's something that really matters to you personally or with work, actually, we're tuned now to sort of a little bit be at the mercy of these tools, whereas some of the tools that we're trying to show today are meant to free you up from that. So you're not just head down with your phone, but actually you can lift your head up and, dare I say it, actually feel a bit more human. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. We're literally with, oh gosh, we had 3 seconds to go. It's counting us down. Thank you so much for your insights. That was fantastic. And thank you guys for listening.
Cool.